Okay, so I've left things behind that I feel that I can sacrifice, plus something that I don't want to. It's a outdoor seating pad. I'd already given away one to one homeless person, street homeless person, but they're really good together as a sleeping mat. They fold out into two, each one, seat and back, and together they're perfect with length, and just sort of the fabric and the cushioning, and they can be a lot easier to pack than a roll. Rolls take up less space, but they're very bulky to carry, and so I've actually been cutting down some of my rolls to turn them into pads that I can put into a, I can flatten down. I've got to get my my gear game down, sorted. I've got all these ideas about making. I really want this proper bivvy bag on a marketplace, but she hasn't really responded. I asked her a bit more, because there's bivvy bags and bivvy sacks, and I don't know if they're the same thing, but my dad used one of them bivvies a lot, and they're kind of like, the proper ones are like, they're not like tents, but they're kind of like coffins, in the sense that you can get into them in your sleeping bag and they keep the elements away, and so they don't draw attention like a tent, and they don't take the packing up or putting up of a tent. But that's something that I really want. And the survival frog sort of, those orange sort of ones, they're more like just sort of thermal blankets, and I don't think they're like the best thermal blankets either. I don't know, whatever, but I really need some really good outdoor gear, and my idea of getting one of those hiking tents as opposed to camping tents, or as distinct from camping tents. I was like, oh, camping tent, really? Is that what you do with tents? I was like, oh right, hiking is like when you need something really light and small and easy to put up and take down in case you just have to stop and camp. It's not for the night, it's not like setting up a camp, to stay in for a while. But even those, anything with a guy rope, no thank you. I really wanted this bivvy sack. It looked like the real deal. But I'm trying to think of my own ways to do this, because you need a lot of padding underneath. You really do, not just for bodily comfort, and I'm kind of skin and bones at the moment, but the insulation, you desperately need that. Like, I put much more underneath me than I put on top, but you need shelter, and I'm playing around with the idea of something like a cat, those cat tubes that they run around, and they're kind of like covered slinkies, and I imagine that they concertina up like a slinky, but fold a lot flatter, and they would go in a backpack. And especially if you're not a big person, then it would fit in your pack. If you're no wider than your pack, and perhaps it would be a D shape rather than an O shape, but whatever it is, you can concertina it up. But yeah, I'm just worried because it was starting to rain a little bit last night and it stopped, thank goodness. And I have this shade sail that I put up over the, I guess they're water pipes on the side of the like a building. And luckily I had some tarp clips which were incredible. I never knew they existed, but they just sort of screw on clips like vices. Amazing. So I just sort of had a sort of like a half triangle shelter over me with a shade sail, waterproof, but I think it's more water resistant shade sail. And yeah, I just put tarps over me as well because of the dew. The dew gets you very, very wet in the morning. But it's a real big setup and it's a real big, like, now I've taken off, it's like I ended up bringing a few too many things, and I brought the suitcase because it's like, well, everything in there I don't mind, you know, if it gets lost, it gets lost. And to be honest, it saves me, like, I've collected so much survival gear that a lot of it I've doubled up on. I've got way more than enough. And if I just leave things here and there, I don't fucking care. But there are things that I do care about. And I can't take all of it with me, you see. I've got to be, you know, the distinction between portable and mobile. I'm portable, but I'm not mobile yet. I need to be mobile. I think that I'm probably going to have to go to Kathmandu or something like that. It doesn't have to be a sail, but I'm going to have to, somehow I've got to just buy some decent survival gear. Yeah, I really wanted this waterproof sleeping bag that was ex-army. And I've now learned the difference between, you know, I've learned about sleeping bags. Like there's sleeping bags that will give you temperatures. So there's a comfort temperature and then there's a survival temperature. And the comfort can be 5 degrees and the survival can be -5 degrees. And it's like, shit. Well, I can tell you the survival, I've survived a few horrible nights. And it's definitely survival, not comfort. But yeah, this morning was 4 degrees. It's really fucking cold. You know, and overnight, in the wee hours it gets very, very cold, and that's when I feel the coldest. The first night I had there, I was so rugged up, I actually thought I was going to be too hot. But I was comfortable, and then I got cold in the wee hours. So I wake up every morning and I cry. I just cry in hopelessness because I have no home base. And I don't know what to do about that. It's a fundamental human need to have a base. And I think even the nomadic people, you know, they had a base which was their clan or their group or their family. You know, they'd make camp and at least they had a kind of they had a routine, and they didn't have governments, and, you know, the commons is for thee and not for thou, kind of, you know. So yeah, I've got some stuff to make some waterproof sleeping bags out of. but I just need somewhere warm to kind of like put them together. Like, there's nowhere warm, everything's cold. Like, there's never anywhere warm to go to, you know. And I do need to go to the public library, but I've also got to, like, I don't really have that luxury of just hanging out in the library. Although I had figured out at the library there is like a kind of like a craft or creative space where you can just go and make whatever you want to, but I think you've kind of got to register and say what you're making. Yeah, but anyway, I'm exploring ideas. And yeah, it's just so weird, and people just assume you're doing nothing for yourself. Like, there was a really nice guy, and he was understanding, but he was very old. And he saw me at the railway station, bus interchange the other day, and I had my pack with me, and it was when I was on my way to spend the night in Riccarton somewhere and wait for my meds the next morning. And I was so tired, I was almost falling asleep. But I knew that I had to just make that big bus ride, 2 bus rides, including waiting to get to Riccarton, so I could just wake up in the morning and go to the pharmacy. And he was just querying me about what I was doing, like, "Oh, you got a tent?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he said, "Got a sleeping bag?" And I'm like, "Yes, it's on my back. I'm not just sitting here eating worms, mate." Like, for fuck's sake, he was just assuming I was sitting there feeling sorry for myself. It's like, no, I'm sitting there waiting for my connecting bus with my sleeping gear on my back, very tired, very stressed, no meds. I don't know why, but people see you sitting down and think you're doing nothing. But anyway, he had been through homelessness himself pretty badly, and he gave me a pointer or two, which had been made to me before, but I haven't tried yet, and that someone else had recommended that I trust. Someone else that I trust recommended. So that's something to check out, because it's not often. I was like, "Oh, talk to MSD." "Oh, thanks, that's genius."